Joining me now is NBC News correspondent Kristen Welker, and from Washington, former RNC spokesperson Genevieve Wood, and E.J. Dionne, author of Why the Right Went Wrong, Conservatives from Goldwater to the Tea Party and Beyond. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and good morning. And Kristen, I'm going to start with you, because obviously Donald Trump is not going to run a conventional campaign. Right. We've already had a bizarre Daily Beast headline that is an actual real headline that says that among the things that we can expect are Donald Trump friends and associates claiming that Hillary Clinton is a lesbian, a murderer, and that Bill is a cocaine addict. So an asymmetrical campaign, to say the least. You've been covering the Clinton campaign. Is just saying, I'm going to run my race, I'm going to not respond. Is that actually what the campaign plans to do?
No, I think they're going to respond to some things. They're not going to respond to everything. I think that word you used, asymmetrical joy, is key. That is the way they're approaching it. Look, they're waking up every day and saying, we are expecting the unexpected. Right. So are they going to get down into the mud with him when he brings up former President Bill Clinton's past indiscretions? No. You saw that response there that she gave to Andrea Mitchell. She said, I'm going to run my own campaign, but she is hitting him head-on on a number of other issues, like his controversial comments about Muslims and women. They've really run away with a lot of those, using some of his comments in ads, and then his taxes. This is the latest point that they've been hitting him hard on. Of course, he's saying he's not going to release his tax returns. Secretary Clinton saying, well, what's in them?
And as a matter of fact, to that point, let's play a little bit of the new ad that was released, I believe, either last night or just this morning, from the Clinton campaign going at the tax issue, as Kristen just mentioned.
Maybe I'm going to do the tax returns when Obama does his birth certificate.
The state of Hawaii released my official long-form birth certificate.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely. I am officially running for President of the United States.
Getting any closer to releasing your tax returns?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I can't do it until the audit is finished.
The audit is no excuse. The IRS has made it very clear that an audit is not a bar to public release. It is entirely your choice.
It's none of your business.
So, EJ, in addition to your great book, Why the Right Went Wrong, you also recently authored a column in the Washington Post warning Americans not to normalize Donald Trump's behavior. Is what we saw in that ad what you're talking about, sort of making fun of it satirically, or does it not take seriously enough some of the issues that Donald Trump presents for the country?
No, I think it takes them very seriously. I think making people chuckle a little bit is usually a good way to get their attention. But I think it's very important that Trump not be allowed to become a normal candidate, because he isn't. And I think we're already seeing the words that the Hillary Clinton campaign is going to want to attach to him. I have dangerous, intolerant, divisive, risky, unreliable, and weird. The weird, I think, may become more important. We have that story about Donald Trump playing a spokesman on a telephone call. I mean, how many other things are there like this? I think the other thing is that enemies of the Clintons have this habit of overplaying their hands. And there are certain attacks on the Clintons that might well work. But when they get into this strange land of, cocaine use and all that kind of stuff, I think they lose a lot of voters. Because remember, all these attacks will rally a lot of Republicans who'd never vote for Clinton anyway. But he doesn't. He needs them, Trump does, but he really needs to persuade swing voters, and sort of out of the box, or out of this world kind of attacks, I don't think are going to.
And Genevieve, to that point, one of the things that Donald Trump needs is going to be to close some of this incredible gender gap that he's opened up. And speaking of weird, I want to play just a couple of Donald Trump sort of new audio that we've gotten on him this week that kind of go to EJ's point. Let's start with Donald Trump on Howard Stern talking about women and their anatomy.
I never get this thing with Lady Di. I know you're very gracious to her.
He really liked Lady Di.
No, I'll tell you what. I think she's magnificent. Lady Di was truly a woman with great beauty. You would have slept with her? A couple of times. Would you have slept with her? Without even hesitation. She had the height, she had the beauty, she had the skin. The whole thing. She's crazy, but, these are minor details. You know who's really changed? Nicolette Sheridan. I think she's a solid 4.
Oh,
okay, now, she was a 10.
What a drop-off.
What about she was an 8. She wasn't a 10.
Okay.
She was an 8, you think? She was a 9. No, she went from being very flat-chested. I view a person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10, okay?
If Angelina Jolie is a 5, what is Jennifer Aniston?
I'd say she's a 6 or a 7.
Really?
Wow, who's a 9?
forward, my standards are very high.
Genevieve, before I let you absorb and respond to that, I want to play just one more. What I've called the catfish aspect of the Donald Trump campaign. This is Donald Trump, a.k.a. John Miller, talking about his divorce and money.
What's your name again? John Miller. And you work with Donald Trump? Yes, that's correct. He really decided that he wasn't, he didn't want to make the commitment. He didn't want to make a commitment. He really thought it was too soon. He's coming out of a marriage that, and he's starting to do tremendously well financially. He's somebody that has a lot of options, and frankly, he gets called by everybody. He gets called by everybody in the book in terms of women. He's living with Marla, and he's got 3 other girlfriends. I'm sort of new here, and what is your position? Well, I'm sort of handling PR. Much of it.
Genevieve, I'm sorry to make you have to answer for this, but you have flat-chested women, implications of gold digging, and just so many girlfriends. How does the Republican Party retain even a minimal vote among women with that person as the head of the ticket?
Well, I think because at the end of the day, Joy, people will have to decide whether they vote based on comments like that. And I think, again, we'll have to see, do people really, really care about those things? I don't like that he said a lot of that stuff. A lot of it was very outlandish. I don't like it as a woman to hear a guy making those kind of comments about women. But at the end of the day, women also care about jobs and the economy and a secure country. And I think if they think Donald Trump is going to be better at that than Hillary Clinton, then I think they're going to be willing to vote for him. Not everybody. But I think that's the question. At the end of the day, will this be a campaign that eventually becomes more about issues than it does about personalities? And if it becomes about nothing but personalities and what the Clintons did in the 90s and what Donald Trump said in the 90s, then we're going to have an ugly campaign. There's no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, I still think most people vote based on whether or not the person they're voting for or against is going to help them get a job, among other issues. I think that's ultimately what makes people push a certain button or pull a lever.
At the same time, though, Kristen, there's never obviously been a campaign where you've actually had real catfishing and those kinds of audio clips on any other person that's ever run for president. Does the Clinton campaign expect that in any point this will become a normal campaign about taxes and jobs and economic policy?
I don't think so. I think they're going to try to make it about that as much as possible. But look, the question about Donald Trump, every day during the primary, will these controversial comments that he said either now or in the 90s hurt him? And the answer was no. His poll numbers kept going up. He brought new voters into the process. So the question that we're faced with right now and that the Clinton campaign is trying to figure out, is he going to have the same effect in a general election? Why you see her so aggressively courting women voters, her base, the Obama coalition. She's had a lot of events, Joy, that have been targeted at those swing voters, independent women, and also Republicans.
Yeah, and EJ, from an historical perspective, I mean, you go back and you look at Barry Goldwater, who made what people consider to be very outrageous statements about things like the Civil Rights Act, and it seemed not to hurt him. He seemed to have momentum, and then he lost in an incredible landslide. I mean, just from an historical perspective, is there anything you can compare this to? And can you ever see what Genevieve has put forward as a normalized sort of campaign about issues?
I don't think a campaign with Donald Trump in it can ever be normal. And, Barry Goldwater was in trouble from the start, and it's kind of unfair to the late Barry Goldwater, whose views I'm very critical of, and especially back in '64, to compare him to Trump. And that is another of Trump's problems in running on issues, which is he's been all over the lot, which means he not only faces opposition from Democrats and independents. A lot of conservatives are out there openly saying we don't trust his views either because we don't know what they are. And in terms of women, he's been able to get some votes among Republican women, but his numbers among independent and Democratic women are terrible. He's losing women in some polls by 20 or 30 points because women resist extremists, and then all that stuff you showed on the air is not going to excite them to vote for Donald Trump. So he has an enormous problem among women.
And Genevieve, I'll give you the last word on this, because the question also is, can members of the Republican Party align themselves with this person, with all of the things that he said, with all of those views, on the bases that you said? I mean, this is also a question of the integrity of the Republican Party, no?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to this is who the nominee is. It looks like it's going to be for sure at this point. And do you think that he would be a better president in terms of what his policies are than Hillary Clinton? And let me just say, It is not as though, and I don't want to go into the mud on this, but it is not as though Bill and Hillary Clinton are the cleanest folks that have ever run for office. She's very pristine and has no wrongdoings or allegations of wrongdoings or scandals in her background is a far stretch. She's got a big problem there. I mean, one of Hillary Clinton's biggest problems is that people don't trust her. Even when you look at Democratic voters in polls, all those coming out of the Bernie versus Hillary matchups have all said, when you ask which candidate you trust, she's in the very bottom of the numbers. So I think that, for Donald Trump's sake, actually helps him in some cases. But look, I think this has to be about issues. If you're a voter, if you're a conservative, you have to look at who's going to do the best when it comes to all the policies you care about. And I have to say, I think Hillary Clinton would be a third-term of Barack Obama, which I don't want to see. And I think Donald Trump, he won't be as good as I may want him to be, but he'll be better than she is.
Well, Genevieve, Hillary Clinton has never impersonated her own public relations executive. And if there was audio of her saying the kinds of things that Donald Trump was saying, I suspect that your party would not let her live it down. All right, I want to thank NBC's Kristen Welker, and Genevieve and EJ will be back. All right. And up